But while you're moving, let me introduce myself. My name is Melvin Pan. I've met many of you before. I'm the CEO of Yoma Strategic, and I will speak after Brad. But the main session today is really about wave money, which is a journey that we've been on for the last 4 years now, and one that I feel very, very excited about. Coming from Myanmar, and having looked at Myanmar's development over the last 20 odd years, it's amazing where we are now in terms of all the infrastructure, in terms of all the developments, and the fact that the country is really opening up with very fast growth. But there's nowhere else in the country that I feel more excited about than in financial services, in particular in mobile money. And the reason is that if you look around the world, I think there are very few countries that is uniquely suited in such an extensive way for mobile money to play a disproportionate role in the whole financial system. In the country right now, you have roughly 10% of the people who have a bank account. But more relevant is probably that if you look at the country in terms of the map, and you map out where the bank branches are, not only are people too poor to be covered, to be in the banking system, but actually they are nowhere near a nearest branch. So to be banked in the banking system in Myanmar is very difficult. In fact, we had a joke that the banking system in Myanmar exists without the banks. The ecosystem of the banking system is largely without banks' participation. People who need to borrow money, borrow from the villages, from friends. If you need to send money to someone else, you go via a lot of unconventional or kind of inefficient ways, i.e. buses. People will take a day off and take a whole day bus ride to the village to send money back home. So wave money can change all of that and have a disproportionate role in the whole banking system. So it's not really just about sending money or making payments, but it could be a lot more. But I think we're at the start of the journey, and I'm very pleased to introduce you to Brad Jones. Brad has been the CEO of Wave Money since the start. In fact, he's been in mobile money for the last 10 years or so, which is probably as long as mobile money has existed. He previously ran a similar business in Cambodia and has taken it to a extremely high growth. Over the last 4 years, I've had the privilege of working very closely with Brad. We've taken this from a concept to today a dominant player in the market and really disrupting the whole economy. So without further ado, I'll pass it on to Brad, who can talk more.
Thank you, Melvin. So good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Absolutely delighted to be able to tell the Wave Money story today. Sylvia has asked me to speak very slowly, so I'm going to do my best. If I actually start speeding up, she'll give me the notice. So firstly, I just want to tell a little bit of a story about what's happening in Myanmar. So there's obviously a lot of stories coming out of Myanmar at the moment, and not all of them are good, but what we think is that the mobile money story that's emerging is actually a very good story. But if we go back about 70 years in Myanmar, really at the end of the Second World War, there was a lot of hope that Burma was really going to leverage its abundant resources and really develop into a much more stronger nation than it is today. If you look at the rice industry, sort of before the war, Burma was exporting about 3 million tonnes of rice. Today it's only about 2 million, and that's only up from about 1 million tonnes in the 60s. So it's actually been an industry that's really declined. Similarly, Burma once had a very thriving oil industry, and today a lot of the oil is extracted by villages in these type of stills. Yangon was on the Sydney to London route, so Rangoon Airport was very much a hub airport for the airline industry, whereas today that's really Singapore and Bangkok. And the financial services industry, if you ask what the relevance of this is, the financial services industry was in much the same way. So if you go back to the 50s, you had banks like HSBC, Citibank, Standard Chartered were all operational in Myanmar and were thriving in the country. What happened though? Obviously in 1962, we saw Ne Win take power. He nationalised the banking system. HSBC, for example, became People's Bank number 9, and it really started a decline of the financial system and indeed the entire economy over the next 50 to 60 years, or 50 years. So we saw a number of dire situations emerge. First of all, there was a demonetisation in 1964. wiping out the savings of many Burmese. That was followed by further demonetisations. If you look at these notes, the 100 chat notes and the 50 chat notes were replaced by 90 chats, 35 chats and similar. And that actually wiped out the savings of Burmese again in 85 and 87. So in 2003, there was a banking crisis. It actually led to two of the bigger banks actually failing in the country. And once again, depositors lost their funds. So what has this actually led to in Myanmar? Obviously, there isn't a lot of trust in the banking system, first and foremost. Having been through these experiences, a lot of the Burmese people still remember the 2003 banking crisis. It's still very vivid in the memories of people who aren't that old. So the entire banking sector certainly has trust issues today. Coupled with that, as Melvin sort of articulated, the majority of the population aren't really covered by financial services. There's been some statistics. Statistics are always being done on this, and they vary between 5 to 20% of the population having a bank account. But when you look at some of the other stats, only 17% of the population are using more than one financial services product. The product that most of them would use would be a money transfer at the bank branch, so they're not really even using an account. 30% are completely financially excluded, and 21% are using only informal financial services. So they're going to the village money lenders and so on. Coupled with that, Myanmar has the lowest branch penetration of any country in ASEAN, only 3.3 branches per 100,000. And to give you some context, that puts Myanmar on the same level as Afghanistan, Haiti and South Sudan. So really, the financial situation or the financial services sector in Myanmar, low levels of trust from the community, low levels of the population who are banked, low branch penetration, making it very difficult for customers to actually receive service. So what does the sector actually look like today? Currently, there are 4 state-owned banks. These banks are in dire need of remediation and probably consolidation. 24 local private banks, ranging dramatically in quality and probably stability as well. 13 foreign banks, which to date have been very limited in what they can offer. This has actually changed in the last week. Foreign banks can now do local lending in local currency, which is a dramatic change actually in the Myanmar market. And in my industry, there's 12 mobile money providers. So one of the things that we're actually quite proud of is that Wave Money was not the first mobile money company in Myanmar. We launched in 2016. We were about the 5th or 6th company to launch. And despite that, we've actually taken the #1 position over the last couple of years. Within the industry, we have 7 banks and service companies that are regulated under the mobile banking license. This is a license that was set up in 2013 for banks to offer mobile money services. And then we have 5 regulated under the Mobile Financial Services Regulation. And this is what we are regulated under. This is a special license that was actually set up to allow mobile operators and FinTechs to offer these services in the market. And Wave was the first company that was actually licensed under that regulatory regime. We're seeing a lot of competition in the market now, and there are really 3 significant trends we're seeing in the mobile money industry as a whole. One of the first big trends we're actually seeing is that banks are entering the market very quickly. So KBZ, which is the biggest bank in the country, has decided to take Wave on significantly, and they've actually launched KBZ Pay, which is a digital payment proposition, and KBZ Cash, which is an over-the-counter money transfer proposition. They've been followed by CB Bank, which is the 2nd biggest bank, who've also launched a digital payments play. We'll see the last 2 mobile operators launch mobile money this year. That's going to significantly drive competition, and so Wave needs to continue to maintain our strong position against that competition. And obviously, we have players like Grab. So Grab are in the market, they're providing services, and they've significantly disrupted the taxi market in Myanmar. But their intentions around payments are yet to be known in the country. So we are partnering with Grab. So we actually do driver disbursements in the country. So we like to stay close to what they're up to and be seen as a partner more so than as a competitor. But their intentions are yet to be known. So that's a little bit about the banking background, the low levels of trust, the low levels of penetration, high levels of competition entering in the mobile money market. What I'm going to talk about now is Wave Money itself, and go through some of the background over the last 2 years. So an introduction. So firstly, we're a joint venture. We have 4 shareholders. So Telenor Group is the majority shareholder at 51%. So those who don't know Telenor Group, they run DTAC and Digi in Thailand and Malaysia. They're the Norwegian state-owned enterprise. The Norwegian government owns 54% of Telenor Group. But they have a significant position in emerging Asia and also Scandinavia. Yoma Strategic obviously owns 34% of the shareholding, and then FMI 10% and Yoma Bank 5%. So from a governance perspective, the way the board operates is we have 3 directors from Telenor Group, 3 directors from the other 3 entities, and it works quite well like that. We came into the market very much focused on mass market. So we're not looking to provide services to bank customers. We're not looking to provide services to the elite and wealthy in Myanmar. We're really looking to provide services to the villagers, to the construction workers, to the garment factory workers. We were very focused with our product offering, and this will be a theme for the next little while of this presentation. When we went into the market, we selected money transfer as a product we thought we could own and really drive very well. We did this because, firstly, we wanted to have focus and make sure that we're executing very well on a simple set of products. Secondly, we could see a huge unmet need. And people do use banks, and they use informal sources, which I'll talk about shortly. But the banks are only open between 9 and 3, Monday to Friday. So if you can't use a bank, you need to use an informal source for money transfer. If you're working in Yangon and you're living in Kachin State, that's extremely difficult to actually use the informal sources, as I'll spell out shortly. So we saw that there was a huge unmet need for money transfer. We also saw the ability to monetize very quickly. And as you can see, Wave Money is now cash flow positive after 2 years. We actually think this is a mobile money world record, actually. We haven't found an entity that's actually monetized as quickly as Wave Money. But it doesn't just allow us to monetize as a company, it's also allowed us to monetize our agents. And our agents are really the most important part of our business. So we now have agents earning in excess of $1,000, $1,500 US per month. And when the agents are earning that sort of income, they're highly motivated to continue the service. We have 36,000 agents, which I'll touch on in a second. And as of October, we're serving about 5 million active customers per month, which is about, the adult population is about 40 million. So we've achieved some pretty good penetration already. And as I mentioned earlier, we're the first license holder. So we're actually a non-banking financial institution under the Central Bank of Myanmar's rules, which gives us some value in actually holding that license directly with the central bank. So just a little bit about our agent network and to give you some context of what 36,000 shops means. So we're running now at 36,000. We've been growing at 2,000 shops per month. We will aim to probably be around 45 to 50,000 shops by the middle of next year. We're slowing down a little bit now. To give you context, there are 3,000 ATMs and 2,000 bank branches in the country. So we're really running at 10 to 15 times the size of the infrastructure that's already existing. And I can assure you, those ATMs and bank branches are not in locations where our customers need to be served. So the bank branches will go down to a township, so they'll never be in the villages. The ATMs will never be in the villages, but you'll always find a Wave agent in the village. So we have an ability to really serve the last mile. And we're also covering now all 14 states of Myanmar. And to those who've been in Myanmar, you'll know that when we're covering areas like Chin State, Rakhine, far north into Patau and Kachin State, we are really going out to the last mile and serving these customers. What I'm going to talk about now, as I've sort of mentioned how our initial focus has been on money transfer, we wanted to bring it to life a little bit to sort of show you actually how a transaction occurs. So we're going to talk a little bit about our customer segments, and you'll see visually in a second how our different products are serving these different segments. So firstly, we have a product which is a very simple product. It's an over-the-counter money transfer where a customer can actually go into one of our agents, hand the money to the agent does the transaction on their phone, and then the recipient receives a code and picks the money up at the other end. This is probably accounting for about 80% of our volume now. So I'll just show you a quick video, and then we'll go on to the next product.
Mà người lấy cho nó vào mà.
Người ta mà nắp lại đi.
Nó tiền.
Mà bông đi mình sẽ làm nó.
Mà bữa nay mà cả tôi nhà cô Lý Nga chào shit. Tôi mẹ phong nè.
Phong là mình sẽ làm nó.
Học tôi nhà cô Lý Nga tông cô.
Lý Nga tông cô.
Chào con shit.
Chào cô shit.
Tôi nhà tôi nhà.
Bác sĩ có cái chân đi.
Học.
Chào nhé.
Học.
Hello.
Hello mẹ, này cao nà.
Ê, mình đi câu mà được quay tao đi câu nà.
Cao nè mẹ.
Lúc cái này họ xin về là tại.
Xem gì đây mẹ. Đi này về là ya lu. Với mà đi nè ngồi lại đây nó mẹ.
Mẹ cũng về message à tại.
Tại đây cái này mà tao thôi lại ô.
Anh chị tao đi nhà ngồi lại là đi. Không xin được bà quê.
Đây long này mà lịch sử.
Bà.
Passport lịch sử rồi bro. Nãy đây nè. Tao đây nãy đâu. Mà thế chỉ lại bỏ nó.
Đi về. Đi về nó.
Okay.
Hello mẹ.
Tại cũng mình ngồi thâu được tiền là cái gì nó. Ngã tao đi con là.
Học.
Cha mày cứ xài nó. Ngã tao đi sao tại anh cũng xin vào chỉ quê.
Học, ok mẹ, học. À bên nó mẹ, học.
So there's just a few things I want to draw your attention to from that short video. Firstly, you'll notice that wave has become a verb in Myanmar. So people will actually say, I've come here to weigh money. In fact, they say weigh money, not wave money. They say, I want to weigh money. And that's how they'll communicate to the agents. You can really see how the brand is starting to take hold when people are starting to use it as actually a verb. Secondly, you can see the segment that we're clearly reaching with this product. So it's the young guy, he's working in Yangon, his mum's a school teacher, but school teachers don't get paid very much in Myanmar. She's living in a remote part of the country, and he's sending money to her, which she's then picking up from the local shop. It's all very much mass market. It's very much dealing with the mum and pop shops that are scattered throughout the country. And it's really servicing that particular customer segment in a way that they weren't able to be serviced before. The next short video I want to show you is we obviously also use smartphones and provide apps to customers that want to actually sign up for accounts. This accounts for probably about 20% of our volume. It's something we want to actually drive a lot harder over time because we get the actual customer relationship when we've got the phone account. But you'll see in a minute the sort of segment that we're serving with this type of product. But what customers can actually do with the app is they can actually send money to another customer's account through our app to app. They can also send money to a shop. So if the young guy you just saw actually had an account, he could have generated that secret code, which his mum could then have picked up at the actual shop location. But I'll show you a short video on this, actually how this process works.
Hey, not on Johnny, why did I like that? You are why son? Why son? To go to Masa, Masa, my labor sergeant.
Pizza.
Oh, we also pizza, Maja, no?
If you pizza, my solution, bacon and cheese, no?
And not delay off.
If you are late, the get pizza man and nothing on about you would have the money.
Also, my life, no?
My life. Hello, wave net be like me.
The time what are you if you around my way flight?
Now, the wave be net be like me. If you wave like me.
She làm no. Hey, yeah, worry. Why did I answer me?
Okay, so you can clearly see from that video the segment's different. right? We're dealing with the Yangonhites, the Mandalay, the bigger cities, and it's office workers. It's what we call the digital natives, and I'll talk a little bit about our digital strategy shortly as well. The transactions are being used often to settle bills, lunch bills in that case, or paying for pizza, and increasingly we're moving into the e-commerce space with these accounts as well. So we have an e-commerce product, and customers are actually able to settle e-commerce bills in that way as well. But once again, wave is becoming a verb. I'll wave you the money, and so this is very much becoming part of the vernacular. Before I talk about some of the success we've actually had in the money transfer focus, I just wanted to touch on, firstly, how people used to send money in Myanmar. And it's very much used to send money because some of the stats we're seeing are quite dramatic on this. 2 years ago, before Wave entered the market, if I wanted to send money and I couldn't get to a bank, I would use really one of three sources. I would use buses. So I would actually go to the bus station. I would find a bus that was going to my village or township, and I would give the money to the bus driver. I'd pay him a fee, and then I'd ring my family and ask them to be waiting at the location at the approximate time to receive the money. So it's time consuming, it's expensive, and often the money wouldn't get there. So not a great way of sending money. Secondly, I would actually take the money back home myself. Or I would use friends to do it if they were heading back to the village. If I'm taking money back home myself, then once again, it's time consuming. I might only be paid day wages, so I'm losing 2 or 3 days of wages to be able to take the money home. And then it's expensive. I've got to pay the bus fares or the train fares to get myself home. The last way that I'd actually send money is I'd use the hundis. The hundi hawala system has been around for centuries, and is really an informal money transfer method. In fact, I can go to Peninsula Plaza here and hundi money back to Yangon, which is where a lot of Myanmar and Singapore actually do it. It's not licensed, it's an illegal service, and to be honest, hundi is really a channel that the central banks of the world would really like to actually remove. But these are the 3 ways that I would actually send money in the past. Over the last 2 years, we've actually seen a really dramatic thing start to happen in Myanmar. We've actually seen the informal market starting to disappear. So what we did in March 2016, we went and actually asked a survey group of customers, firstly, did they send money or send or receive money? And then if they did, what percentage used the different channels? So 16% of people in March 2016 reported as actually saying that they had sent money in the previous month and they had actually taken the money back home themselves. That was how they'd taken the money home. By August 2018, that figure had dropped to 3%. So this data, by the way, is being generated for us by TNS Kantar, which is a global research firm. Friends and family, 13% of people reported as saying they had actually sent friends and family back with the money. That had dropped by about half. Because when you consider this is still quite a trustworthy channel if my family's going back to the village. Bus, 15% of people had done it 2 years ago. That had dropped to 5.6%. And the hundis had dropped from 6 to 2. So in all, we can sort of say, and we've actually said this to the central bank, who have been delighted to see these numbers, that since the development and the launch of mobile money and wave money, we've actually seen the informal sector drop by almost 2/3. And we believe that this is actually going to drop even further as more and more people start to see the value of sending money through wave money and our competitors. So that's really the industry as a whole and what we've actually started to see happen in the informal sector. The most amazing stat, though, is what we actually saw around mobile money. So in March 2016, and you've got to remember, we had 4 or 5 competitors in market in March 2016. This is about 6 months before we formally launched. Only 0.8% of people had actually used mobile money in the previous month. This has jumped up now, 2 years later, to almost 40%. So that's 40% have either sent or received money. So we were quite delighted by these numbers, and we'll continue to actually watch it. We want to obviously see that go up to 80 to 100% of people using mobile money versus the other channels. And it still shows that whilst we've had great growth, there's significant upside yet to come. So that's the industry as a whole. We think that we're a fair chunk of the industry at the moment. But in terms of Wave's performance specifically, we've got a couple of slides. Now, there's no dollar values on these, and I'll sort of call it out right at the very start. We're a consolidated company as part of Telenor Group. And so with Telenor being on the Oslo and NASDAQ stock exchange, they don't allow us to actually publish financial results. So, but what we do publish, I suppose, is directional information such as this. So we've seen revenue grow now over the last 12 months by 656%. We've had a cumulative monthly growth rate in revenue since January 2017 of 20%. So 20% month-on-month growth. That is continuing. We're still seeing strong double-digit revenue growth, and there's nothing to indicate at this stage that that is slowing down. So we're in no way, from our perspective, tapped out the market yet. Similarly, so WST, which is what we call Wave Shop Transfer, which is the over-the-counter money transfer, we've actually seen transactions grow by 887% in the last 12 months, which is a compounded monthly growth rate of around 26%. And once again, I mean, this is our money maker for the moment. So more than 80% of our revenues are coming out of this particular transaction. And so we're not seeing any slowdown in growth. So, and now the volume is so large, we're actually, when we're continuing to see double-digit growth in these transactions, we're seeing a very nice bump in both revenue and transaction volume on a monthly basis. To give you another number, so far, by the end of October, we had processed in money transfer around about $900 million US year to date. We estimate we'll probably do this year around 1.5 billion US, and then we fully expect the growth to continue into 2019. One of the things that has supported this growth has actually been a brand campaign that we actually launched, and we think we really hit the spot with this particular brand campaign. One of the insights we had in Myanmar was that the elder female in the family, so the auntie or the grandmother or the elder sister, was really the decision maker and the problem solver when it came to financials. So when we had this insight and we understood that really our core customer was either an older female, was either sending money to her kids or to family members, or was receiving money from kids, similar to what you saw with the young guy sending money to his mum, we built a whole brand campaign around that insight. We actually commissioned a very popular female comedian in Myanmar, a lady by the name of Puint. When you see Puint, you'll realise she's very funny, but she could also be anyone's auntie, anyone's older sister. So this campaign that I'm about to show you now, it's a number of other TV commercials, but this has actually helped us build brand awareness to what we think to be well in excess of 90%. There's very few places I've been to in Myanmar where I say to someone, do you know Way Money? And they all say no. So we pretty much have universal brand awareness now. And a lot of it has been to do with this campaign.
အရန်ချောတာပဲ
ကျေးဇူးပါကွာ
ဟမ်ဒီစိတ်ပဲလားကွာ
ဟာဘာလဲအဲ့ဒါတားချင်ပါ
ဟယ်လို
အမဟိုစိတ်လေဝင်းနီးရဲ့မင်္ဂလာဝင်းဆောင်စားသွားပြန်ပြီ
ဘယ်လိုဖြစ်တာလဲမင်္ဂလာဆောင်ကနောက်နေ့နေလောက်တော့မှာမဟုတ်လား
ဟုတ်အမကျွန်တော်သိတယ်ကျွန်တော်မှလည်းပတ်စံမရှိတော့ဘူးသူကလည်းဝင်းဆောင်လို့နေပြီမ
Wave Money ကိုအသုံးပြုတာလွယ်ကူပါတယ်1သိငွေကိုလွှဲပါ2လှည့်ဝက်နံပါတ်ကိုပို့ပါ3ထိုနံပါတ်နဲ့အခြားဘက်မှာငွေလက်ခံနိုင်ပါပြီလှည့်မြန်စွာငွေလဲလိုပါက Wave Money ကိုတတိယလိုက်ပါ9ရက်ပတ်လုံးညဘက်တိဆိုင်ဖွင့်ပြီးဆိုင်ပေါင်း2000ကျော်ရှိလို့အဆင်ပြေနေပါတယ်အလွယ်ကူဆုံးဆိုမှာတော့ Wave Money ပဲပေါ့
So as you can see there, we've used humour. One of the things that we've actually identified in the Myanmar context is slapstick humour is very popular. So, so what it's actually done is create a great recall for us. So, and if you mention Puint's name to anyone in Myanmar, they generally start laughing as soon as they hear her name. So it actually has worked very well. But this is really about the last couple of years. And my message to you sort of as investors is that we will continue to drive money transfer very hard. We have a distribution team that's very focused and given very aggressive targets and we think there is still significant upside. Now we've reached a point of cash flow positive on a monthly basis. We're actually now starting to generate cash on a monthly basis that can be potentially reinvested back into the business. We'll continue to drive that very hard and continue to take and maintain the dominant position in money transfer for mobile money operators. But we also need to look to the future. And the future in Myanmar really is digital. And so whilst we're driving money transfer, we also need to start a more aggressive pivot into the digital space. Just a little bit about Myanmar in terms of the digital foundation. So Myanmar is quite a unique market. Because telecommunications came quite late to the country, it's about an 80 to 90% smartphone penetration market. The data usage in Myanmar matches Thailand and Malaysia. So there is a very heavy consumption of data, very heavy use of apps like Facebook, and an increasingly digitally literate population. So one of the challenges in Myanmar historically has been people had smartphones, people had data, but they didn't really know how to use them. They didn't really know how to download an app, so they would use agents to actually do that for them. That's starting to change, and we think particularly in markets like Yangon, Mandalay, Taunggyi, we're starting to see the digitally literate population increase. We're seeing this because we're seeing an increase in the use of e-commerce. We believe, for example, that we've got as many as 6,000 Facebook merchants, and these are merchants who've basically set up shops on Facebook that are using Wave Money to collect payments. We believe it also because we're seeing the continued growth of social media in the country. We think there's probably about 20 million people on Facebook now. And we believe that the country is really ripe for digital products. So what we're doing at the moment, obviously 2016 to 18 has been very much about consolidating our position and building out money transfer so we can monetize and so we can actually have a very liquid and high quality agent network. We have that high quality network now. It gives us the ability for customers to be able to cash into their accounts anywhere in the country. But we are going to start the pivot now to more aggressive focus on digital products. So what I mean by that, it means we have built out, so we have just actually relaunched our app. The app is very much built around use cases now, and really what our focus on is on increasing the use cases. So the use cases we have today is send money, top up phone, pay bills, donations, and then also QR codes. So we're building out merchant capability as well. So in addition to that, we've had an open API strategy. We've gone through a major tech transformation program over the last 12 months that's led us to build a API platform, a leading API platform that will allow us to onboard partners and billers in a very rapid and agile way. So this digital pivot is actually underway, and with the launch of our new app and a number of other announcements we'll make in the coming months around partners, you'll start to see more focus from us actually in terms of the digital side. Importantly though, just to stress, we will not take the focus off money transfer because it can continue to be a major source of cash generation for us. I'll give you a very quick look at actually where we're going on QR codes, and particularly as it applies to merchants.
မင်္ဂလာပါမင်္ဂလာပါညီမအမ2 press လို့ရှင်တို့ဟုတ်ကဲ့ပါဘယ်လိုပေးမှလဲတဲ့အော်အမ wave နဲ့ပေးမယ် လက်ပြီးတော့မစရောက်ပါဘူးဟုတ်ကျေးဇူးပါဟုတ်
You can see from that short video, there's really two Myanmars starting to emerge here. So we will continue to serve the mass market, which is the money transfer the mum and pop shop agents, but there's also, if you're in Yangon, you're starting to see it. You've got cafes like this one are opening up. We have KFC, we have Auntie Anne's as part of the Yoma strategic shareholding opening up in the market. So there is a real push in modern trade and a push into very glitzy shopping centres and supermarkets and so on. So as we start to pivot in the digital side, we're also starting to increase the products and services that we'll actually have for this new segment and this growing segment of digital natives. As well as leading in terms of our approach on money transfer and what we believe is going to be taking a leading position on digital, we're also very focused on leading in a corporate social responsibility way as well. We're doing a number of projects, and I'll just quickly talk about this one because not only do we believe it's actually helping the nation, but it's also something that actually is a strong business opportunity for us as well. We've been working over the last few months with Myanmar Economic Bank, which is one of the largest state-owned banks. They're responsible for doing pensions for 800,000 pensioners through the country. So these are elderly people, retired school teachers, retired government workers who receive a fairly modest pension of about $60 or $70 every month. Previously, before we started the program, pensioners would actually go to the bank, and on the left-hand side is the image of the bank on pension day, and they would line up for up to 5 or 6 hours to actually receive their pensions. So these are elderly people, and often they would get to the end of the day and the bank would have run out of time and they would have to come back the next day and go through the process again. So what we've done is we have worked with a number of the branches, and it's a project actually we're now looking to scale. So the numbers are still fairly small. It's about 400 or 500 pensioners we're working with. But we trained the pensioners, we actually showed them how to use the Wave account. They all had phones, and they're now receiving their payments digitally. So it's a win-win. It's a win-win for the pensioners. It's a win-win for the bank because they get some of these people out of their branches. And it's a win-win for us because it's a way of us acquiring more customers. We're also working with other NGOs. We're working with World Food Programme in Kachin State, where we're doing digital disbursements to internally displaced people who've been forced down from the Chinese border because they're fighting on the border. They're living in IDP camps in Machina, and we've shifted them from receiving payments via cash to receiving payments through Wave. Once again, we were actually a little bit concerned about the digital literacy levels of these people and whether they would want to receive their money digitally. It was actually the opposite. One of the learnings we had from that particular project was that standing in line to receive a cash payment does not really give you a lot of dignity, whereas the women who receive these payments have said to us that when they're receiving them through Wave, they can choose to cash out the payment when they choose. They don't have to line up at a particular time, and it actually gives them an increased sense of control of their lives because they've been given basically a financial account to manage with. Just as I come towards the close, a couple of final points. We were also very pleased in the last few weeks to actually be recognised in the FinTech 100. So the FinTech 100 is a program or an announcement that's done every year. KPMG and H2 Ventures out of Australia do a review of fintechs around the world. We don't apply for this. This is something that actually comes out of their independent research. We were recognised as one of the emerging 50. And this is really 50 fintechs that are starting to make a bit of a name and actually are seen as at the forefront of innovation. The very pleasing thing for us out of this was that we were the only company from Myanmar that was recognised, and we're only one of 11 in ASEAN that was recognised in this way. So it was actually a very pleasing recognition. So just my points in closing. Firstly, I hope I've been able to demonstrate to you that given the history of Myanmar, and particularly the financial sector in general, we firmly believe that mobile money can be transformational. The journey has only just started. So we're only 2 years into the journey. We think we've actually made some great progress, but there's still a long way to go. What we've been able to do, obviously in a very short period of time, is actually grow a significant transaction base. We've been able to get to cash flow positive, and we've been able to build out this agent network, which is really our strength at the moment. But we're very mindful as well of the need to start to build out products for the shift to digital. And going back to my competition slides, it's a very competitive space. So it's actually something we're going to have to be very good at executing and to make sure that we can continue to take the leading position in digital in the way we have with money transfer. So that's it for my formal presentation today. I'd be very happy to take any questions that people may have. Yeah. I think we've got a microphone here, actually. Okay. This is the secret sauce, really, because if the agents aren't making enough money, then they don't leave the money in the accounts. So I think, firstly, it is the agent's money. So they're taking that money, and most of them don't have bank accounts. This is something we're trying to remedy, and we work very closely with Yoma Bank on this. But firstly, the agents have to invest a sum, usually around about $500 or $600, to get started. And then really it's up to us to be trying to push as much volume to that agent as possible to make it worthwhile for them to actually maintain that liquidity. We're doing a number of different projects to make it more attractive to agents. Obviously, where agents are generating high volume, it's not a problem. You know, the economic benefit of actually holding the money becomes very clear very quickly. But we're also working with Yoma, for example, on a credit product where agents for the first time, because these guys generally haven't had bank accounts, will get access to credit so that they can use the overdraft and potentially, you know, they're not actually using their own money for the liquidity. So we think that's going to be very attractive with agents, and we think that's actually going to be a way for us to create even more stickiness with them over time. Oh, sorry. Yeah, so essentially, we don't do any transaction fees outside our system. So when a customer is actually, let's say they've transacted 100,000 chat, so about 100 Sing, they're charged around $1.50 Sing for that transaction. About half of that goes back to the agent and the distributor, and about half of that goes to revenue for us. And then the split of the revenue is split between the sending agent and the receiving agent. So they're receiving a commission basically within the system. So, and then we give them reporting on how much commission they're making on a daily basis. So one of the problems with these businesses is that if you don't keep it all in the system, then they start surcharging. It's a bit like the Visa MasterCard problem, where you see merchants starting to surcharge. So we don't allow surcharging, we keep it all inside the system.
Okay, hi. Hi, my name is Roy. I've got a couple of questions here. Based on the presentation, and what I get is that right now your focus is more about moving money from one point to another. And the other part is, what you're also trying to do is, more around creating the capability, like, around payments. Mm. Have you also, because you have got Yoma Bank at the back, are you also looking at savings and microcredit as well as part of your future proposition? Yep.
Yes. So we already are working on savings. So we have a real-time link between us and Yoma Bank. We were the first in the country actually to have the ability to move money instantly between bank and a mobile money platform. And Yoma Bank are building digital savings products, which makes it easier for customers to be onboarded. We haven't yet built that to be onboarded through our platform, so like coming through our front door as such, but Yoma are doing it the other way. So Yoma are actually onboarding customers digitally and then onboarding them as Wave customers and linking their accounts at the same time. Microcredit, that's definitely something we want to get into. We can't lend under our license today, so we'd be more of an originator of the lending, but we see the agent credit as really the first step in that, because we're able to score the agents. So we're basically scoring the agents off the income that the agents are making. So if the agents are showing healthy income, we're effectively almost using that as collateral because we can sort of see, we can do a forward estimate on the revenues the agents are making. So we'll build up our knowledge around that, and we'll build up the credit scoring around that, and then that's something that we want to take to the market with Yoma, probably I'd say sometime in the next 12 months.
Right. Okay. And the second part of the question is that also looking at the future. Currently, whatever we have seen so far, it's mostly when the remittance is happening. It's more around assisted services, right? So somebody goes to an agent, and then the agent does the transaction for them, and the recipient also goes to an agent and to pick up the money. And now, when you're moving into payments and building your own app, right? And one, are you targeting the same set of customers with those services? Because here there is also a question of then you are expecting those same set of people to be able to start using app rather than going to an agent. So if yes, then how are you planning to increase the usage in that particular segment where they are compelled enough to go to an app and start using those services rather than going to an agent?
The short answer is we're not targeting the same customers. So and even though over the counter is about 80% our volume, the account is still 20% and growing. So that part of the business is actually growing very nicely as well. But they're very different customers. So there'll be some overlap, and there'll be some customers that will come back, will come to the account over time. But that customer group of less digitally enabled will continue to be there. It's the and as I said, because a lot of it is actually an older woman who's receiving the money or sending the money. Similarly, it's perhaps a construction worker or something like that. They'll continue to use the OTC business model. So we don't see that changing. In fact, we see that growing really nicely. We think there's a big market there. So we'll continue to harvest that as long as we can. And at the same time, we focus on the digital natives, which are a different segment. So I don't see a lot of crossover between the two.
Right, Scott Bales. Between yourself and Telenor, there's a lot of experience, obviously, in mobile money. How would yourself and Telenor compare the Myanmar journey to other markets you guys have worked in?
I think there's so much information that's available now and so much experience that's available to leverage now that I think we were lucky starting in the market in 2015 because when I started the business with Scott actually 10 years ago, there was nothing in the market in Cambodia. So you're trying to learn along the way. I think what we've been able to do very effectively is leverage a lot of learnings. My management team has been superb. I've pulled people from mobile money operations around the world. So Susan, as an example, was head of marketing for Cellulant, which is a major mobile money operation in Africa. She's been our head of marketing for the last 2 years and launched the brand campaign you saw before. Similarly, we've pulled distribution experts out of Telenor in India. India is probably the toughest distribution market in the world. So getting experts from that market and from Telenor, who did very well in distribution in India, I think has been a bit of a game changer for us. So I think there's a lot more information available, and I think we've been able to hire very good people.
We heard today you have a user base of 5 million. Where do you see the maturity curve, and what will be the determining factors? Is it you need to increase your agency base or a wider product portfolio or pricing competition? How do you see that going forward, Brad?
I don't think we haven't put a number on how big it will grow. We have obviously strategies and forecasts at a high level, but we just watch the growth each month. So it really just sort of and we keep saying when will it slow down, and it doesn't seem to slow down. So we haven't put a top number on it. But one focus area probably at the moment is on increasing productivity at the agent. So rather than actually grow out to 100,000 agents, we would rather actually see better productivity across the agent base and better income across the agent base, because that gives us a position then where the agents are more liquid and making more money. So a lot of our attention over the next 12 months will obviously continue the growth, but try to make our agents wealthier, basically. because with agents making good income, then it's a very healthy business.
Hi, my name is Mohammed Hassan. I had a quick question on QR payments. So one of the videos you displayed here was about how someone's paying via the QR. So the success of that is how many merchants actually take on that system. So I guess my question is, what is your plan as to broadening the network of shops, which may be cafes or even smaller shops that accept QR? And with increasing competition, do you find different incumbents coming up with a different type of QR, so then it becomes challenging to have one unified QR?
I think there's a couple of things happening in the Myanmar market. So firstly, there's a lot of QRs being issued. There's a lot of merchants being rolled out, but there aren't a lot of transactions being done, right? So I think there's a couple of initiatives that are being done in a bid to try to improve that. Firstly, the central bank, which is actually very progressive, I have to say. They are convening a working group currently, which we're a member of, as well as the banks, to get to a unified QR code standard. I think there is a broad agreement that it will be an EMV-based standard, and that they would leverage sort of the infrastructure in the country, which is probably the national payment switch as the interoperability piece. So I think that work is underway, and I think all the banks and mobile operators at this stage have said that they're prepared to work on that. I think still work has to be done on the commercial model and how that would work. So I think that's potentially an enabler of the industry working. I suppose at our individual level, I mean, we're leveraging our expertise from agents as we sort of roll out merchants. And so we know with agents is that if you roll agents out and they don't have income coming from it, if there's no incentive for them, then they quickly become disengaged. So we're taking that learning into the way we're going to roll out a merchant network and make sure that we're providing enough incentives for the agents to actually, or for the merchants to actually take transactions. And we're then going to be incentivizing customers to make sure that they're incentivized to do transactions as well. I think every market we've looked at where QR codes are starting to actually take effect, incentives at both the customer and merchant level are necessary. So I think we're not seeing a lot of that in the market at the moment. So as I said, we're seeing a lot of QR codes roll out, not necessarily a lot of incentives roll out with the QR codes for both merchants and customers, but we think they will be necessary to do. So I would say part of our approach to this is very much a commercial test type of approach. We're not putting down massive bets on this. We're actually making sure we get it right before we look to invest.
Thanks. Just a question. In your early years, how did you build out the network, or was the network based on Telenor's agent? And the second question is, you mentioned the banks are coming in. Do the banks have an advantage?
It's a very good question, and actually, I'm glad I got a chance to answer it, because I think one of the areas of value that we have as a company is we run our own distribution. So in other markets, or even in our market, our competitors actually are leveraging the distribution of the telcos, of their own telco. And I think there's an inherent disadvantage in that. If you're running a telco business, it's a very big business, and mobile money is a very much smaller product as part of the overall portfolio. So the incentive for the telco to really drive the mobile money business is fairly low. For us, we own that network. So it's our staff, it's our distributors, they're contracted to wave money, and that enables us to be very focused. So all of our salespeople only have 3 KPIs. So it's the number of agents they're rolling out, it's the number of transactions that are going through their particular areas, and it's the airtime volume that's being sold by agents. And so we drive those sales guys with those 3 KPIs very strongly, and it's enabled us to build up a very good asset. Your question about the banks, I'm not so worried about the banks. I think the banks, firstly, there's only 2,000 branches in the country, so the banks don't have expertise in running agent networks. So as they start to go out and attempt to run distribution networks, I mean, I've brought in distribution experts out of the telco industry, and that's been one of our competitive advantage points. I think I'm not seeing the banks do that. So the banks aren't necessarily going out and hiring distribution experts. They're relying on branch staff to roll out agent networks, and I think that will be difficult for them. I think we're just about wrapped up, so I'll hand across to Melvin now. Right, thank you very much.